Dear all, I am Dr. Pradeep Bhawal. I am working in the area of EU ETS for the last 12 years. I decided to share my experience to explain EU emission trading system to the common people in a simple way. So let's begin. We start with some fundamentals. Let us understand first the heat balance of our Earth. The heat in the Earth is coming from the Sun. Sun is the biggest source of the energy. And similarly, a lot of heat is also radiated in the atmosphere and the spaces. So in general, in a stable situation, the heat in and heat out energy should be more or less the same and our balance is zero. That means the temperature is maintained and in a steady manner in the Earth. But when we have a lot of greenhouse gases, then what happens that greenhouse gas traps those energies and doesn't allow them to go out. And in a process, the energies are coming back and the net energy balance is now positive. Once we have a positive energy balance, then this will be obviously increasing the temperature and our temperature goes up slowly. So that is what is happening, is called the greenhouse impact. But in this EU ETS system, we will be mainly dealing with the CO2 because there are many greenhouse gases, but EU ETS or in these presentations, we will be mainly concentrating on carbon dioxide emission. Now we quickly look at the graph, which some of you might have already seen, that rise in temperature over a period of time. Most important thing in the recent time, the rate of change is very high, and if you are not able to stop it, then it is going to have a disaster on us. Now in this slide, let us try to understand the relation, because it's sometimes quite difficult for a common people to understand the relation between the emissions, the climate change and the role of the EU ETS. So once we have more and more emission, our climate change will be more and more worse. As soon as the climate changes, as the climate is becoming worse and worse, it's the job of the administration or the EU to take some corrective action so that we get back our climate or our Earth remains a livable area. So that's how the role of the ETS comes, or EU ETS comes, that they define different rules and regulations to curb or to reduce the emission and in a process making the climate better. Now as the climate is becoming more and more worse, the rules and regulation will be more and more strict and it will be more and more expensive. So that's how the feedback loop is working, and that's how the administration is working to reduce the emission and in a process making our environment better. Now we see our learning methodology. We will be learning it through some question and answer sessions, because this is the most natural way of learning. Let us see in this video, try to answer some of the most frequently asked questions. So let's go ahead. The first question is that emissions are going into the air. How can it be traded? Now for the purpose of trading, that we need a commodity, what we need to trade, like a sugar, silver, gold, steel, whatever it is. We need a quantity of measurement of quantity. We need buyer, we need a seller. But what is happening in CO2 trading? The moment we are emitting the CO2, it is going into the air and we have nothing at hand to trade. So how do we trade it? For the purpose of trading, all emissions are recorded and certified. And then the certificates are traded. The moment we have a certificates, now we are able to trade the certificates. That means when we are emitting, we have an emission certificate. Similarly, once we are getting a permit, so we have a permit certificate. So same certificate can serve in both the purpose, that means allowances, at the same time actual emissions. That's how the trading takes place. Now let us summarize that commodity here is CO2 emitted. Measurement is tons of CO2. So 1 ton of CO2 corresponds to 1 certificate or 1 unit. And price is traded as a euro per ton of CO2. We have a buyers, the mainly emitters are the buyers, and sellers, we have a EU, which is actually issuing the certificate, and there are other players who can also, the emitters can also sell and buy, and also there are other small players which will come in the subsequent slides. So we come to the next question. In this trading, who buys and who sells? You can see the European Union is actually issuing the certificates. So they are the biggest seller, or they are putting the certificates into the market. Now we also have a small seller in this whole cycle, which is called the foresting companies, or you can say NGOs, who are plantation companies who are planting, and as we are planting the trees are going to absorb CO2, and they are also incentivized by giving them a certificate based on their plantation quantity, and then they in turn they are able to sell it in the market. Now comes who are the buyers. The biggest buyers in this market is the emitters. So emitter emits and they need a permit for emissions. So permits are given in terms of certificates, and we also have some small traders, like we trade the shares, like once the CO2 price is low somebody can buy it, and then once the CO2 price is high somebody can sell it. So this is typically the traders, but they are not actually contributing to the real CO2 project, but they are a part of the emission trading system. So let us summarize the flow. So EU is issuing the certificates, and these certificates are given to the emitters either free of cost, a part, and a part by they have to buy from the market. Then EU can also withdraw some of the certificate what they have issued, withdraw in terms of redemption of certificate, or also they can reduce the circulation of certificate in the market. Then comes the small foresters, as we told, they get the certificate depending on their forestations, and they can sell certificates and they can earn some money, and we have the traders who can buy and sell. So this is how the summary looks like. We are coming to the next part of the question. Who is the beneficiary? Where does the money go and where does the money come from? Let's go ahead. As we see this flow of money, the EU is issuing the certificate which is purchased by the emitters, and emitters are paying the money. So main flow of money comes from emitters to the EU. And there are two secondary flow of money, like the foresters who are also selling the certificates what they are earning by the forestation to the emitters, and then the traders. In a process of trading they can also make some money, but finally the emitters pays for it. Now question comes that where from the money comes to the emitter for this extra payment. So if the emitter gives from their own pocket, of course the business may not survive, or their profitability will be so low that they will not be interested to continue to this business. So according to the business rule, this emitter has to pass the cost to someone else. So someone else means the person who is buying product from them. So the buying product is the consumers. So you can see the consumers are ultimately paying for the CO2. How the customers are paying? Whenever the customers are buying any product, so with the product there is a cost of CO2 directly or indirectly. So sometimes they know they are paying for the CO2, sometimes they do not know. For example, they are buying a product, for producing that somebody is using electricity, and for the production of the electricity they need to pay for the CO2. This is how the whole chain works, and finally the price of the CO2 is coming on the product, and whenever this consumer is buying, consumer is paying for it. Okay, let's go to the other side of the picture. So other side is that where the money goes, because it's not a small money, it's billions of euro. So the main money goes to funding research and development projects, and in a process, and also subsidizing the different green project like windmills, like solar panel, ethanol production. So this is how the whole flow of the money works. Let's go to the next question. How can trading reduces the emission? This is very important. We have seen about the trading, but we need to understand that what is the benefit of EU ETS systems and how it is going to reduce the CO2 emission. So emitters are emitting. At the same time, emitters can be a largest contributor for reduction of emission. If the emitters are able to reduce their emission, then their product cost will go low, and they are becoming more competitive compared to the market, and they can earn more money, and that's how they will be encouraged to invest into latest technology of low emission technology, and also develop their own work process so that wastage is minimum. And on the other hand, the companies who are not able to reduce their emission, they will be penalized in terms of their cost will be very high, so their profitability will go down, and possibly they will not be able to survive in the market. So this is called the incentive and penalization process. That's how we expect the emitters to make largest contribution in terms of reducing the emission. Next comes the R&D. So this R&D people, if they are able to develop some technology, then there will be low emission in the atmosphere and we will be able to reduce the climate change. Now, similar thing is for this renewable energy. So the moment we are using renewable energies, we are not emitting CO2 or greenhouse gases, and that's why it will help us to reduce the emissions and reduce the change in the climate. And then comes the forestation. So naturally, once the forestation takes place, the CO2 will be absorbed and our atmosphere will be better. Now, here one thing I would like to shortly talk about the circular economy. That means we should be able to use our material as much as possible before we actually reject it, because the moment we are cycling, we are using CO2, and once we are emitting CO2, once we are producing from the scratch, we are also emitting a lot of CO2. For an example, if we are producing 1 ton of steel from iron ore, our emission is more than 2 tons of CO2. But if we are using the scrap, recycle the material in the electric arc furnace, and then our emission is around 400 kg per ton of steel, plus some emissions coming from the electricity production. So you can see there can be a big difference if we are able to make use of our material as long as possible and as much as possible. So with that, we go to the next questions, that who creates the rules for trading? I think it is quite obvious that the rules are created by the European Union after consultation with all the different member countries. It's very important to consult with the member countries because the energy basket may be different in different country and the law can have a different impact. For example, some country has a lot of nuclear energy, so they don't emit CO2, so their CO2 cost will be very low. And some country where electricity is produced out of coal, in that case their cost of energy will be quite high. So it's a complex subject and a lot of negotiations takes place before the law is finalized, so that there is a balance between all the plus and minus. So ultimately, European Commission for the Energy, Climate Change and Environment is responsible for developing the laws, implementing them and monitoring them, their impact. And there is a climate action website, so anybody can go there and they can go get a lot of latest and deeper informations if they want. And there is a link for it, so which I will be giving in the description of this presentation. Now we come to the last part of 2 questions. Is this trading inside the EU or it is trading international? And is this trading compulsory for the emitters? So answering to the first questions, that this system called EU ETS, it means this is strictly EU system. But however, the other part of the world, they're also trying to understand or trying to learn how the EU ETS is working and adopting a part of it. But here the 2 terminology I just want to mention, carbon leakage and CABM, because once we are in the international trade, we cannot implement something of our own. It must be aligned with others, at least the external trades. Otherwise, what will happen? There will be a cost difference. The cost of the European companies will be higher, and the cost of the non-European companies will be lower, and we will not be able to compete. So that's why some kind of compensation is given in terms of carbon leakage, and there is a lot of discussion of implementing a cross-border adjustment mechanism. So this will be discussed more detail in the subsequent part. Now, is this trading compulsory for the emitters? Yes, this trading is compulsory for all large emitters. For the small emitters, it's not necessary. But in the subsequent part, we will go even more detail that how it is decided that who is supposed to be in this scheme and who is not supposed to be in the scheme. So with this, we are coming to the end of our part 1. So in this presentation, we explain different aspects of EU ETS system in a very simple manner. Now the viewer can have an idea that how this EU ETS system is helping. In the coming parts of this series, we shall go more into detail about the EU ETS mechanism. We have the contact given below, so if you have any questions, you can write to this email, so we will be answering your questions. So let's make our earth better And I would like to thanks to all of you for your time and hope to see you soon in our next part. For the time being, goodbye.